Raheem Kassam is the author, as I mentioned, of a book about no-go zones. And if that's a term that you are not familiar with, we've asked him to come and explain it to all of us, both what he has witnessed in the places that he and, of course, Katie and I think even Elizabeth hail from, and others besides, but also giving us a sort of insight into what we'll be talking about in the second panel about what's happening here. Raheem Kassam.
Thank you. Well, thanks to you all for coming, and thank you to Frank and the Center for Security Policy for hosting today. It's my first time, well, I drove through Amarillo once, but it's my first real time in Texas. And I'm to understand that that's not really Texas. I'm loving this place already. And what I really love is to see people like you out there who are willing to fight the fight, as Katie said, not willing to go down the route that we have gone down in Europe. It's not often that I can speak on a panel with people like Katie and Elizabeth and Frank and say that I have the biggest target on my head. But I was born into a Muslim family and I was raised a Muslim. And so my experiences with this issue are not just sort of the ones that I see out there, they're the ones that I've lived also. I grew up with people around me who were incredibly anti-Semitic, who were incredibly anti-Christian. I grew up with people who told me you can't talk to white people, they're the devil, you can't trust them. This was my childhood. And so what I see going on right now, not just in the United Kingdom, but all across Europe, is this writ large. It is, as Katie said, in the mosques, in the thousands upon thousands of mosques that are being built all across Europe at the moment with Saudi funding and with Turkish funding. They are made to radicalize people. They are made to have people renting trucks, blowing themselves up on tubes, on buses. That is our reality right now. Last year, there were 50 terror attacks across Europe. Only 2 of them were not related to migrants or radical Islam. And the political establishment, as Douglas said in his video, would have us believe that we are the problem, that the people who are speaking up against this and speaking up about this, even someone like myself, from a Muslim family, I am the problem. In fact, I'm so much the problem that in 2013, an Iranian-funded think tank in London announced that I was the Islamophobe of the year. And I said, thank you very much. This is the crazy situation we found ourselves in now. So as Frank said, I watched what was taking place in the United States. I watched this Fox News interview with one of your sort of right-wing political commentators, and he said that there were no-go zones in the United Kingdom. And he elicited a response from the British Prime Minister, who said at the time, David Cameron said at the time, well, this guy's clearly an idiot. So I thought, okay, let me find out if this guy's an idiot. So I went across my own country, and I went across Europe. I went to the suburbs in Sweden, outside of Stockholm and Malmö, the suburbs, like Katie mentioned, Molenbeek, which is actually one of my favorite places to visit because I have this sort of perverse interest in our decline. We have to have this interest in our decline if we are to avert it. And the same thing is happening in France, in the Netherlands, in Germany, and of course, Mutti Merkel invites 1.2 million people as the migrant crisis started a couple of years ago, and said, don't worry about these people, they're doctors, they're nurses, they're engineers, they're going to assimilate, they're going to integrate, everything's going to be just fine. Well, now we've had a handful of terror attacks committed by those very same people who entered our continent. And what I've found in my travels was not just evidence of a significant, concerted, systematic attempt to pervert our civilization, but I also found that it was already happening here in the United States. I disagree in a sense with Katie that you know, you're at a position whereby it's not happening to you yet, or where it may be easier to save. I think you're actually pretty much at the same position. I just think you don't quite know it yet. My travels took me to Hamtramck in Detroit and to Dearborn. And I did research around groups like Jamaat al-Fuqra and the Deobandi movement here in the United States. It is alive and well. It is thriving. We have seen it. We saw it in San Bernardino. Don't forget. That was one of the most preeminent examples of this ideology manifesting itself. So I was in San Diego at the time the attack happened, so I got a car and I drove up to San Bernardino. And I found out the mosque, which this chap, Saeed Farouk, and his wife, Tashfeen Malik, had attended. And I walked into the mosque, and I said to them, what are you guys teaching about the Islamic Caliphate? What are you guys teaching in here about the Khilafah? And I shoved a camera in their faces, which they didn't enjoy. But I said, you know, you're moments after a terror attack, and you're putting out statements that say, you know, we all condemn this and we've nothing to do with this. I said, what are you teaching the people in your mosque? We don't want to talk about that. We don't have to talk about that. That's none of your business. Of course it's our business. It's happening in our communities. And they don't want to talk about this. And I'm afraid to say that your last president was complicit in assisting these people. Don't forget, his first major foreign policy speech, he goes to Cairo on bended knee and quotes not once, not twice, but 3 times from the Quran, and says before the Arab and Muslim world, we're sorry. America's sorry. We're sorry as a civilization for existing and for thriving, and we will do better, as Douglas said, to suicide ourselves. Well, thank goodness that president is not in the Oval Office anymore. And if I may say so, thank goodness this president is in the Oval Office. You were minutes away from midnight in nearly electing Hillary Clinton, who would have not just been the continuation of failed Obama policies in this area, but she would have been, and she said it herself during the campaign, emulating Angela Merkel's approach to migrants and refugees here in the United States. And I wake up every morning and thank God that Donald Trump is in that Oval Office. Believe me. Believe me. Starting to sound like him now, believe me. Ladies and gentlemen, I think today, and you know, for all the questions that are going to be asked and all the other panelists you're going to hear from, I think today the question is not how you don't consider, how you don't sort of follow us down the path, but how you actually reverse the trend. The trend is already in your communities. It's already out there. Just miles, a couple of miles away from here, we've seen it manifest itself. So I will echo what Katie said, but I will add the following. Do not believe that Sharia law is not already in a neighborhood near you. It absolutely is.